Everything you need to know about products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on CL 650.
Welcome back to the program. Sterling Fox joined by Sean Lang, president of Interprovincial Roof Consultants, on this episode of the program. And Sean, you were talking about how you're having frankly, a really good summer. You and your team at Interprovincial Roof Consultants are flat out busy.
Yeah.
And you talked about the kind of report writing and inspecting work that you're doing. But what is the majority of the business? You're not a contractor. It's not Interprovincial Roof Contractors. It's Interprovincial Roof Consultants. So tell us about how your business differs from a contractor and what all your teammates are busy at.
Well, okay, I'll start with generally what I end up doing in a day. And my day can be very diverse in the sense that I get into the office, after 6 in the morning, and I'll basically start my day with my plan of attack, which
this, by the way, in Cloverdale, by the way, on the main drag in downtown Cloverdale, just to identify where Sean starts.
Now you know where I am.
Okay.
So, I usually have a plan. Let's say I'm going to go into work today and I'm going to write a specification for a project that I have already looked at. So we're hired to write the specifications so that the roofers can bid on the job.
Right.
So I'll go in the morning and I'll start writing the specification. I pull up the documents on my computer and the phone starts to ring, because every morning the roofers that we do have active roofing projects with, they have to report in whether they're working or not and what they're doing. So I actually have a dispatcher in the office, one of our roof observers, who takes the calls, and we have a dispatch sheet that he enters the information onto, and we all work together. We basically have a big powwow for the first 2 hours of the day, talking about the jobs, figuring out which jobs that we're going to go to depending on where the roofers say they're at and whether they're working, whether they're not. And so my first 2 hours of the day, although I'm intending to work on a specification, is now being derailed by having to help the guys get the day set up so that we can go out and we can review the projects that need to be reviewed.
And what size group are you talking about? You're working with a team at the office in Cloverdale.
Yeah.
You have these big huddle-up sessions. You determine, you go down the checklist and make sure all of the crews are working on all of the job sites.
Yeah.
And then you dispatch each other to go and have a look at those sites. What size team are we talking about?
We actually have 4 roof observers right now and 4 girls in the office taking care of all the admin.
Okay.
So,
and what's the difference between a roof observer and a roof inspector?
Pretty much the same thing. It's just a terminology. We are registered roof observers. It's a designation given out by the Roof Consultants Institute, or RCI Inc. in the States.
Okay.
And it means that we've gone through the testing to prove that we know how to ethically and responsibly review the installation of a roofing project without taking one side or the other.
Right.
We know how to be impartial. We know how to properly report what we're talking about and what we're seeing to the owners and all parties concerned. It could be a general contractor and the roofers themselves. They need to know what we're finding, because a lot of them use us to check on their crews, which I don't really agree with, but we end up being their quality control sometimes.
Right.
So going back to my morning.
Your morning. So now you've had that 2 hour.
Well, no, I'm not done yet.
Oh, my.
No, because in between all this, talking with the guys about the jobs and listening to what they're talking about between themselves and trying to get my specification worked on here, my phone's ringing as well, because I've got roofers calling me with questions on jobs that they need answered, specifications and technical questions that they want answers to. So really the first 2 hours I don't even get to touch the specification that I really wanted to work on. And by 8:30, 9 o'clock, things are starting to calm down in our office regarding the phone calls and the setting up of the day. The guys have left the office now, and I'm left to my desk and peace and quiet, and I can work on my specification.
Right.
But no, the phone keeps ringing, and now I've got clients that are calling and they're wanting to discuss projects and discuss where they should go with their project, and discuss potentially hiring us, so quote calls. And then I've got other roofing contractors that will continually call with questions and such during the day. So quite often I'll start a day with an intent to get some work done, and I get none of it done because I'm derailed so much by all these other things.
Now, it's not you're sitting there with your feet up on your desk.
No.
It's you just got a whole full plate.
Exactly. And I call it switching gears, because all day long I end up switching gears. And what I find amusing is that I'll get a call from one roofing contractor and he'll just blurt out a question. And, at any given time, we may have 40 jobs on the go that are active. So I can't keep all the information of 40 jobs in my brain and have it ready at the drop of a hat for the question that you've got for me.
All right, fair ball.
So I need time to go find the file, pull up the specification, refer to what the question is and find the answer. And that is what a consultant does. And a lot of people think that consultants or roof observers are supposed to have the answers immediately at the tip of their tongue. But really, it's all about knowing how to investigate and source out the answers for somebody and giving them the proper advice. So if I tried to keep all the knowledge of everything that's involved in the roofing trade and our industry in my head, I wouldn't have any room for anything personal or anything. I would be a basket case.
Yeah, and a very lonely guy.
A very lonely guy, yeah. So, you know, there has to be that understanding there. So, yeah, I get my gears switched all day long because
Sure.
Johnny calls me up. He's got a question about job A.
Mhm.
I got to go find the file, pull the file out, look up the question, get the answer for him, call him back with the answer. Great. Now I can get back to typing out my document. Oh, the phone rings again.
Right.
And now at this time it's a client who'd like to talk about his project. So there's a half an hour.
How does if you're that busy, and let's just say you use the number 40, so let's just stick with that. For you got 40 projects on the go, varying sizes, and yet of course you are an entrepreneur and always looking for new business. How does new business come your way? Is it word of mouth? Obviously, people hear about Interprovincial Roof Consultants on the radio here on CIL 650, but otherwise, is it just word of mouth and reputation?
It's a lot of referrals, yeah. We do work with a lot of clients regularly. A lot of property managers will use us over and over again on different projects. One project can span the course of 2 or 3 years
Of
sometimes.
course, yeah.
Because you in the initial stages, you're just doing a review of the roof and you're getting to know the building. The owners are getting to know you and what you can do for them. There's a lot of discussions that happen over months about what's happening with the roof. Where should they go? What kind of money are they looking at spending? And then you get to the specification stage and you have to go through the writing stage of that, and then they have to review it in the draft stage, and then they come back with some changes they'd like, so it gets rewritten. And this process goes on, and then finally you get to the tendering stage, and that's a month-long process in itself, just to get the tender call out and invite and have a site meeting, and then you want to have a couple weeks for the roofers to actually do their calculations and measurements. The prices come back, and then following that, the owners may need some time to call a special general meeting.
Well, I was just going to say, here you are working through the supper hour tonight, and it's more than once per month you end up in a strata environment at a council meeting. Now, is that generally after you've been retained by maybe the building property manager to do an inspection of some kind, and you found something that all of the owners in the strata complex are going to have to pay for, like it or not? So do you attend the meeting and deliver the bad news yourself, or does the property manager step up and take the old tomatoes? How does that work?
It varies on every case, because some property managers are more involved than others, and it all depends on how they're being paid, how they're hired, because they're independent. And some are hired really just to do the bookkeeping or whatever. Some are right on top of everything. They want to be involved in every meeting, and they're right in there. So it depends on that. And then there's also a roofing council that's usually set up amongst the owners, where they'll ask for some volunteers to form a council of 4 or 5 people who will actually take on the challenge of dealing with somebody like me. Not that I'm a challenge, but you know, where we will talk about the project and we'll sort it all out, and then they can report back to the owners the results of the discussions and the advising that we've been providing to them. And possibly they've been talking to a contractor independently of us, and they've been getting quotes on their own from contractors, and they might report that to the strata at a meeting, so that now they're educating the other 100 people in the strata. So it can go a couple of different ways.
Well, so what happens if at the meeting, though, now Interprovincial Roof Consultants is a reputable firm with an excellent reputation and a fee structure that to some is a little, oh my. But in a world of you get exactly what you pay for and you explain what you do for your money, that settles a lot of people down. But what happens if at a strata meeting, you've done the inspection, the property manager has brought Interprovincial Roof Consultants in. You've done a walkthrough, you've had a pretty good look, and you've discovered some problems. And now it's time to tell the residents of this complex that they're going to have to pony up some serious dough to fix this problem. So now one of them has a brother-in-law who's got a roofing company. And, you know, he's perfectly capable of handling whatever job. And this is a piece of cake for a guy like him. What do we need this roof consultant here for? It's in my family. So what happens when you're faced with that, toe-to-toe with a relative at a strata meeting?
Well, that happens quite a bit. And I've often said that there's the same people show up to every strata meeting because there's always a certain character that has to pipe up in the audience. And has the same basic questions every time that we go. And we're there basically to provide advice and help to people. And sometimes we actually get attacked with questions because they feel like we're there as an enemy for some reason.
Well, you're about to squeeze them for some dough they'd rather not part with.
But
Thank you very much.
I'm not getting the money. I mean, we're helping them buy a roof. Right?
But it's just the bad news of unexpected surprises.
But what I've learned is that I don't walk in there unarmed. So I walk in there with maybe a slideshow. I'll take along a PowerPoint presentation that'll show them exactly what's happening on the roof system, so that I'm not just here talking to you and saying, oh yeah, your roof is toast, you better get it done. I'll prove it to you, and I'll show you the pictures that I took of your roof, and I'll show you why they're a problem. Not just that looks bad, but why that's a problem.
Okay.
And once it go through the process of explaining to people why they have a problem and why the roof is going to fail and what could happen when it fails, they get it.
Right. Well, most of us, I think, to be fair and to be bluntly honest, most of us know absolutely zippity-doo-dah about roofs. We know zilch about roofs. So when somebody says, "Oh, it's going to cost you $35,000 each to fix this roof," we all go, "What? Come on!" But then you do all the math, and all of a sudden it's $1 million roof job, and it's big-time stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it can get very expensive on those large projects, and there's a lot of factors that people don't consider. It's not just that you're going up and you're changing every square foot of the roof. What is the roof tying into?
Right.
So if you've got some wood siding walls and flashings that are tying into the roof system, and the roofing membrane on a flat roof has to go up behind the wall system, so that the water that's running down the wall sheds onto the roof, not behind the roof.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
So you have to take the wall apart to some degree in order to install the roof system. So if you have an older building that's 25, 30 years old and it's got wood siding on it, that wood siding is probably going to break in most cases. You're lucky if you take off a board and you can put that board back on. So how do you deal with that? I mean, are you going to price that out separately in some way that you know how much this is going to cost? And that's one of the things that we cover in our specifications is the per meter length cost per side for a siding board, pre-painted and installed, so that when
so anything that gets broken and gets tossed has to be tossed out.
Yeah,
its replacement is counted for in the upfront numbers.
On a per unit basis, yes.
Right.
Because we'll never know how many feet or how many meters have to be replaced.
You got to allow for some, right?
Exactly. But we know how much that meter is going to cost. So the contractor can't come to the owners after the discovery that this is going to be, and they should have assumed beforehand that the wood would be a problem. But if, let's say, they didn't even touch on it in their own quote, the owners would not know how much it's going to cost per meter length if the contractor didn't have that already predetermined.
Right.
So the contractor could look at the job and go, wow, I can really make some good money on this. I'm going to charge them $100 a meter, right? Well, if we do that beforehand, when the tenders are happening, the owners can then compare those unit prices to the other contractors to see that they're in line with the other contractors in some way, within 10% or 20% of the other guys, or are they way out of the ballpark? So that if this guy's main price is sort of good, but he wants to charge me $1,000 a meter to change some wood siding or something stupid like that, you'd say, no, this guy's ridiculous, right? So it's a way of pre-qualifying the contractor. And we found that the more pre-qualifications we can do ahead of time saves the headaches down the road when the job's underway.
Right. Tell us a little bit about your people. You are a journeyman roofer with multiple years experience, and it's really quite funny because about 25, maybe a few years before that, on the building of this radio station, a young Sean Lang was one of the roofer guys, and it's a tar and gravel affair. It must have been a hot, sticky, nasty old job back when it was done, eh?
Yeah, well, I was just up there doing some repairs at that time. And actually, it's funny you brought up 25 because it's 25 years this year in August that I've actually been in the roofing industry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and so the other roof observers who are part of the Interprovincial Roof Consulting team are also, first and foremost, journeyman roofers with years of experience in the biz, so you can't slide anything by these guys. They've been there, done that.
Absolutely, and that I profess to only hiring journeyman roofers to do the work that we do. Whether or not they have the computer skills is something I find that they can learn, because it's really more important that these guys who are out there looking at the roof system know how to install and have been through the process of installing a roof system.
Right.
It's one thing for me to explain to you in a day-long seminar how a roof system should be installed.
And it would take at least a day.
Well, whatever. But at the end of the day, you'd know how the roof's supposed to go on.
Yeah,
right?
I would.
You could go home, fall asleep, and dream about putting on a roof.
Mm-hmm.
But the next day, if you woke up and had to go and install that roof system, could you do it?
Not a chance.
No, probably not.
Right.
I mean, you might get into it part way, and then you, what happens now?
What?
What do I do with this?
Yeah.
Because there's always some issue that comes up that's not per plan. I mean, it's never 100% perfect. So how do you adapt, and how do you deal with those issues? How do you deal with, not every roof is a rectangle or a square. They're all different shapes.
Sure.
Architects get crazy with some of their designs. We have to adapt to them. So a roofer who's a journeyman roofer who's been spending years, 20 plus years doing the work, he's going to have dealt with all those issues, and he knows how to help another roofer deal with them when he goes on the roof to do his review.
All right, our guest is the president of Interprovincial Roof Consultants, Sean Lang, in studio. It's Experts on Call on CIL 650. Check out the website, too, iprc.ca. Lots of terrific information for all of us, and I say all of us, who know so little about roofing. Oh, come on, don't even be embarrassed about it. It's just true. We're back after this.
There's still more ahead with Experts on Call on CIL 650.